Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ben, and this is the Smoking Hot Confessions Barbecue Podcast. Hey family, I hope you're well wherever you are and you got that thin blue smoke rolling. Tonight we've got episode 104 of the Smoking Hot Confessions Barbecue Podcast, and tonight we're heading south of the border down to Sydney and then out west towards the Blue Mountains. We're dropping in with Scott Evans from East Blaxland Butchery. East Blaxland Butchery. If you've heard this name before, it's because they were the 2019 Butcher of the Year winner at the annual Australasian Barbecue Alliance Awards. So it's a fantastic honour. It's very prestigious and a highly contended award, as butchers are so important to the barbecue scene. The team at East Blaxland Butchery has really gone above and beyond to have an extraordinary range of meats available for the carnivore community, and Scott has a ripper of an episode lined up for us tonight. So in this episode, we're going to get into the story behind the shop, how it all came together, how it's evolved. We're going to talk about the range of products they got there, as there's a lot of things you can get there that you just can't get anywhere else. So we're going to find out about what that is, where they come from, and why it's proven so popular. And then, of course, we're going to get into a bit of the COVID-19 and how the business has evolved and what strategies they've got in place and all the interesting, clever little evolutions, little changes that they've found to adapt and carry on despite the challenges. We're also going to find out how the butchery got involved with the competition barbecue scene. We're going to find out the number of teams that they sponsor, and I'm just going to give you a little heads up. It's more than what you think. It's really cool. And then we're going to hear the story about how they went to the Royal in 2019 to compete with one of those sponsored teams. That is on my bucket list. To be able to get to the Royal and go have that experience, man, that is just next level. And then we're going to close out the episode at right at the end there. It's going to be really fantastic. Scott is actually going to give us some advice for approaching, building a relationship with, and negotiating sponsorship with a butcher. And with that advice coming from a butcher himself, you know that it's going to be some gold class advice. So without further ado, let's get stuck into it.
This is the internationally awarded Smoking Hot Confessions Barbecue Podcast with your host, Ben Arnott. How long's it been since your last confession?
Scott Evans, butcher extraordinaire from East Blaxland Butchery. Mate, welcome to the confessional.
G'day, Ben. Thanks for having me, mate.
Mate, anytime. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. So how you been?
Mate, look, we've been flat out. We kind of got a surprise hit with the panic buying that was set in with the whole result of this COVID-19. And the shop hasn't really slowed down since. It's not so much panic buying now, but I just think a lot of people have maybe got a bit more faith in their local butchers because the supermarkets ran out of stuff and we just kept our shelves as full as we could.
That's really interesting. So
yeah,
we're actually going to get to COVID-19 just a little bit later and
yes,
and talk about the evolution that sort of brought on. But I wanted to start with getting the story behind the shop. How did the shop come together?
Mate, I'm 29 at the moment. I turned 30 in September, and I've been butchering now for 15 years. I was politely asked at the end of year 10 to leave school. So I dove headfirst into the very first apprenticeship, which was in butchery in the middle of the mountains at Hazelbrook. And yeah, I've worked in 3 shops. I've only worked in 3 shops. The third shop is being the one that I bought. I'd worked there for 2.5 years before I bought it. And then we took over in end of December 2015.
Nice.
So it's coming up on 5 years now. We're currently negotiating our 5-year option with our lease. So we're trying to make sure we'll be here a bit longer with everybody else. Yeah. And that's it, mate. I like a lot of butchers, 5 to 10 years ago, had no idea about American barbecue in Australia. Brisket was sausage trim. It was good, flavoursome, fatty sausage trim. And about a month after I bought my shop, I stumbled across the Australasian Barbecue Alliance page in January in 2016, and I went, wow, what are we missing out on? Our industry this is crazy. This is cool. And my shop slowly evolved. I started a small smokers group on Facebook. We've got our shop page, and I started a group adjacent to that. And I remember when there was less than 10 people in the group, and we were going to have a local get together, and then it just kept getting delayed because the group was growing. And now I think there's 1,700 people in it from, mainly local, because I try to keep it as local, because the main purpose of it is for me to directly advertise our barbecue cuts and rubs and sauces, and when we get certain branded stock in. But yeah, it's this amazing little community that's just kind of evolved with the shop as the shop's grown over the last 4 years, going from just selling like a basic style barbecue sauce to now having a huge range of rubs and sauces, charcoal, different fruit wood, loaf lighters, thermometers, you name it, we try and have it.
It sounds like the Low and Slow has kind of really become the focus of the shop.
Oh, mate, it has. It has. That's I always loved my trade, and then I fell in love with it again when I kind of found barbecue.
Yeah, it's funny that I was always a big fan of cooking meat over fire, and then I discovered Low and Slow, and as you said, it was just it was wedding bells all over again.
Yes, that's right.
So what was the name of that group that you organised down there?
So the group on Facebook is called East Blaxland Smokers. As I said, we use that as a way just to keep people up to date when we get in certain stock. We pre-announce things to the group. I'll let them know ahead of time. We make about 6 times a year. We're due to make another batch, actually. We make a private run of jalapeno and 4 cheese snags. And we advertise it to the group, and normally we pre-sell and have to make 350, 400 kilos just for each run. So we spend hours making them. I normally go to Costco and spend about $1,000 on different cheeses and jalapenos. And it's a labor of love, but that's something that the group's kind of have grown and fed from. And in turn, a couple of years ago, I hit up Cy, like Simon Luxton up by Cy, and he worked his magic and kind of created this cool design of me and the sausages and a mincer, and we've sold close to 400 units of shirts and hoodies and singlets in the last few years with that design, with our smokers logo on the front. It's all through this group. It's amazing.
Mate, that is absolutely fantastic. And I'm really happy to hear that you are running a brand-oriented group, because with the way that social media is heading with the algorithms and how they're working, that sort of stuff, man, if people have a barbecue business and they don't have a brand-centric group, they are just going to be losing out big time.
Yes, definitely.
So you said that you moved into butchery straight out of year 10. Was it something that you were always interested in, or was it just the idle hands of the devil's plaything and you needed somewhere to go?
Mate, I wanted to be an architect, and there wasn't enough kids in year 9 to carry it on, like to do tech drawing and progress with that. And I was a bit of a narrow-minded kid, so I was like, I've lost my chance, stuff the system. So I started rebelling, and I initially wanted to be a chippy. I just wanted to be a carpenter, and couldn't find anything. And I was actually with my father. We were visiting one of his friends in hospital, and I was waiting for a train. I was getting dropped to the train station afterwards, and my dad's friend who'd broken a hip said to me, "What are you going to do now that you've finished school?" I said, I just want an apprenticeship. And there was a woman in the hospital ward making the beds, and she said, "Well, my husband owns the butchery at Hazelbrook." This was probably early December, and she said he's after someone to start in the new year. And that was it. I just spent 6 years at Hazelbrook.
Wow. So cool.
And it was something I'd never considered. It was something I'd never put thought to. Like I'd grown up doing like agricultural stuff at high school and spending a lot of time on farms and properties, but never had I considered doing anything like with the butchery aspect. And I feel like I was born for it.
So what was it about the butchery industry that that really hooked you in?
Oh, it was working with older blokes that were always cheeky and troublesome, and always a fair bit of banter going on in the shop, and you'd muck around and run amok, and sometimes you get into punch-ups with each other. It was almost like you were at work in a pub. Some of them.
I was about to say it almost sounds like a barbecue competition.
Yeah, oh mate, yes, except just with probably maybe looser people more prepared to use the knives. That's the scary part. I've been stabbed twice in chops. Yeah, things happen.
like seriously stabbed, or just people playing around and things got a bit accidental, or
one was a muck around that needed stitches, and then the other one was a disgruntled person I worked with. Yeah.
Wow.
But that's sort of our industry is not normally known for attracting the best people. It's that's why I'm a firm advocate of if you find a butcher and they're decent, build a relationship, because the ones of us that are good, we do our best. Yeah.
Mate, I worked for 2.5 years as a bouncer, and I didn't get stabbed once. So you're definitely winning there.
Yeah, I'll take it, mate. It's not often I get praise. So.
Yeah. So we started to briefly mention it before, the range of products that you got at the shop there. Now I had a look at the cover art on your Facebook profile for the business, and you've listed grass-fed beef and lamb, Bangalore sweet pork, American-style barbecue cuts, local imported cheeses, gourmet sausages, large deli meat range. So let's kick things off at the top with the grass-fed beef and lamb. What is this big craze about grass-fed? Why is grass-fed so good?
Look, there's a lot of people with the train of thought and the opinion. I'm not going to lay my opinion down either side, which I think is better, but that grass-fed, there's less impurities in the meat. Obviously, depending on what the animal's being fed, if it's been fed in a feedlot and it's being fed a lot of grain, people are worried about what's been sprayed on the grain previously. I will always pick grain-fed beef myself. I prefer the flavour. More marbling and more intramuscular fat is good, in my opinion, in that sense. But I'm not going to, I personally don't really have an opinion of which one's better for you health-wise.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. It's almost like it becomes a bit of a cerebral sort of, conscience decision more than anything else from what I've heard.
Yes, I think so.
Interesting, though, that the intramuscular fat, which is what we're all into in barbecue, is what comes from grain-fed and not grass-fed.
That's right. Look, and don't get me wrong, you can achieve, there's actually plenty of companies. There are plenty of Wagyu companies that are grass-fed. I believe Robins Island are grass-fed. Don't quote me on that. I don't purchase their products. I've never tried them. But yeah, it is achievable with genetics and probably good grasses and stuff, but like normally you see an animal put on most of that intramuscular fat when it sits in a feedlot for 150 days or more.
Yeah, I think that the cattle that comes off of Tasmania, like Robins Island or Cape Grim, my understanding is that even though they're grass-fed, they do have quite a lot of intramuscular fat just because it is so wet and there's so much grass down there. But
just that continual feed.
Yeah. Cows that we used to process where I grew up in Scone in the Hunter Valley, though, where it was like sort of dusty dirt, brown grass for 9 months of the year, they were pretty lean.
Yeah, that's right, mate. They would be. There's a Wagyu producer at Nimbin actually that does grass-fed Wagyu.
Now, I'm actually waiting to get him on the show, because when you say grass-fed,
really? Yes.
When you say grass-fed, we're not talking about grass-fed. We're talking about grass-fed.
I believe it's actually grass-fed, not grass-fed, but I'm not sure. I'd be very interested to hear that interview, mate, if you do it.
No, they actually are advertising as hemp-fed Wagyu.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think that's awesome. That's a cool spin on it.
Yeah. Very interesting stuff. And when I rang to try and get some, he was sold out for months.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah.
Just the demand for him. There you go.
Yeah. So that's going to be really interesting.
Yes.
And speaking of Nimbin there, just next door is Bangalore, and you've got Bangalore sweet pork.
Yes, mate.
They have quite a reputation.
I'm actually I'm gonna run the numbers on it from the time I've been supplying teams with Bangalore sweet pork. I'd be happily proven wrong, but I'm pretty sure that outside of companies such as Sun Pork and Borrowdale and some of these bigger producers, maybe Gurley, for a smaller producer, I honestly think Bangalore would probably have the most trophies and walks. And not just from my shop, there's plenty of teams that use Bangalore sweet pork. I know the Brizzy Baster boys use Bangalore sweet pork. But I'm a firm believer in their product. The fundamentals of their business plan is amazing. The way they run their farms, the breed, it's a composite breed of 3 separate pigs. There's Duroc, Long White, and Berkshire. And they feed it a certain grain mix, which I couldn't even tell you what it is. I don't think they'd probably tell anybody, but it promotes a thicker fat growth, like that fat cap, and it just adds. The flavour is amazing. I've never seen it crackle bad. We sell our loins as bacon and legs. We get them smoked, so we can have Bangalore bacon and ham in the shop.
Oh, so good. Bangalore bacon.
Yeah. Oh, mate, it's once you have Bangalore, you never go back.
Mate, I don't doubt that at all. From my time as a competitor, I know that always had a great reputation, Bangalore sweet pork.
Yes. Yeah.
And so the American-style barbecue cuts, you obviously became aware of them, as you said, when you came across that Australasian Barbecue Alliance group.
Yes. Yep.
How, as a butcher, do you start to break down the carcasses differently, or do they come in already broken down and then you further break them down differently? How does that work?
So I suppose I think a lot of the place where a lot of butchers will probably struggle to come across, and what a lot of people, I think, when they first start out asking for brisket, and I'm guilty of this before I found the ABA, the size of the bodies that we buy in as fresh beef, to have like a nice small yearling grass-fed eye fillet or Scotch fillet, we're buying animals that would probably be about 180 kilos dressed. The brisket off one of those things is about as thick as like a half, or not even a quarter ream of A4 paper. There's nothing on them because they're so small. So we quickly found that we had to start buying a lot of carton meat, but that also gave us, I think, not an advantage, but it gave us the ability to give our customers a more consistent product, because I can approach companies like Ranges Valley, who I'm a fanboy of theirs. They're my beef company. If I had to pick one beef company to buy my beef out of for the rest of my life, it would be Ranges Valley. And I can buy products that I know that have gone through such a stipulated process that they run, but it provides quality. And I can get an 8 kilo brisket instead of a 1.8 kilo brisket that is going to dry out instantly.
I think that might have been one of the first ever briskets I had, was one of those little ones.
Yeah, yep. But the first brisket I ever did was one of those little ones too, and it was terrible.
Yeah. I actually, I didn't know anything about trimming a brisket, and my butcher obviously didn't know anything about brisket himself, because he handed me this rolled up one and said, "There, go cook that in a pot."
Had he pinned and he sewed it? It was like a rolled roast. That's awesome. That's what we learned to do with brisket if we don't need it for sausage trim.
Yeah. So I actually just took it home and I unpinned and I unrolled everything and just threw it as is on the smoker. I didn't understand about trimming fat and all that sort of stuff.
Oh.
And so my wife and I, we were cutting slices off it, and of course, the fat was hot and moist and soft, and it was just so tasty. And we were just shoveling slices of this thing into our faces. And then, of course, in the middle of the night, having eaten that much fat, it turned on us. And we took turns. We took turns with stomach cramps in the bathroom, and both had to take the next day off work because we just couldn't get out of the bathroom.
It's something that a lot of people that's something that's quite common. A lot of people say to me when they've started smoking, they're like, our bodies, like our standard diet, you're not really used to that much rich meat. And it takes a little bit for all that fat to process.
It does, yeah. So if you get about a 1.8 kilo brisket off of a 1-year-old cow, what sort of age are the cows that we're looking at for the 7, 8, 9 kilo briskets?
Oh, I would assume in the 3 to 5 year range. I know that Ranges Valley Black Onyx program is 280 days grain fed, and I'm pretty sure they normally take those cattle onto the feedlots at 18 months. So that would put it at about 3.5 years, I'd say.
Yeah.
And I mean, like they are, it's funny, their briskets come in a different shaped box than the rest of their meat. It's a bit narrower at the box, and the points on them are always kind of flattened out. It's like they jam these 2 8-kilo briskets into a box. It's always 16 kilos without fail.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's kind of interesting about the Ranges Valley, and just it's remarkable to me how they can take so many different animals and still come out with, you know, as you said, bang on 2 8-kilo briskets in a box.
Yes.
Every time.
Yeah. And they're, I don't know. I really am. I'm wrapped with them as a company. Like their feeding system, the way they run it, like with their F1, their first cross program, which is a full blood bull, like bred over an Angus cow. They sit for 350 days in the feedlot because they put, like, their growth rate is slightly slower. The Angus put on weight quicker than the Wagyu do. And then their full blood Wagyu program, again, they sit in the feedlots for 500 days. Every animal eats 18 kilos of grain a day, but they just put on weight at a slower rate as they go towards the full blood Wagyu from the Angus.
That's fascinating. So they've obviously like studied that, and they have it down to a formula.
Yes, mate. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they said the full blood Wagyu cattle, after 500 days of grain feeding it 18 kilos of grain a day, they've eaten almost $6,000 worth of grain each animal.
Wow.
Not including what they owe them from buying and procuring from their background farmers. Yeah. And that's why, like, when we were the first people in Sydney to get their full blood briskets, the Infinite, in a marble score 9. I remember getting those through one of my wholesalers, and we were wrapped with it. But they were a brisket that was retailed at $33 a kilo, as opposed to like a Black Onyx brisket in the Ranges, which we retail at $18.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's the difference. And then if you look at a marble score 9 in the WX, which is their first cross program, we'd retail those at 24 a kilo they are at the moment. Okay. So that kind of gives you that step in price, which is reflective of the amount of effort that went into each animal.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I learnt anything from watching that Tiger King show, I know that tigers cost $10,000 a year to feed. So
that's right.
They're obviously a far more profitable animal than tigers.
Oh, definitely. Much less risk as well.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned those sausages before. I'm pretty sure I saw a post floating around somewhere, might be a little while ago now, that you won awards for sausages. Is that right?
Just recently we did, yeah. We were blown away. It was a People's Choice Award online through the Sydney Telegraph, the Daily Telegraph, sorry. And there was 3,704 butchers nominated, and we got voted first place in Western Sydney and second place overall out of 3,704 butcheries. We were blown away. We've had the local paper come and do a bit of a write-up on it, and just the amount of new people that, I don't know, I don't get why it's so hard to make a good sausage. It's just don't put junk in it, and it's pretty simple. So, yeah, it baffles me, but apparently a lot of people struggle.
Well, I tell you what, I made the switch a while ago, 7-8 years ago, to butcher shop sausages, and
yes,
there is no going back to supermarket sausages.
Oh no, you can't. Nah, even just on texture alone, I think like that pastiness of a supermarket sausage, and yeah, it's not good.
You can almost taste the flour in it.
Oh, that's right. Emulsifiers and binders in it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Now, speaking of awards, tell me what it was like to win Butcher of the Year for the ABA.
Mate, it was me and my whole staff went, except for one of my butchers. He was busy, and we went down to Black Bear and at Vineyard, and I was sitting there. I was sitting next to Glenn Dumbrell from Cha Cha Cha, actually. Me and Glenn are, we're very, very good mates. I've got a lot of time for Glenn. And we were just sitting there next to each other, and we just said, good luck, see how it goes, because Glenn was a nominee as well. And Yeah, mate, I didn't think we were going to get it. We were nominated. We didn't even get nominated last year. We were nominated the year before, but we didn't win it. And so I just took the boys out for a good feed and a couple of beers, and then we won. I was wrapped.
That's awesome. And so what sort of opportunities has that led to for you?
I suppose it's going to sound bad, bragging rights.
Let's call it brand recognition.
Yeah, okay, that sounds much better. That sounds much better. Mate, look, not too many opportunities. Things have, I suppose, everything slowed up on the barbecue front with the whole virus scenario at the moment. Yeah, not too much at all has really come of it. Like we've already, I suppose, we've already got a bit of a following, so it's increased that slightly. But yeah, most of the group's already there.
Fair enough. Yeah, it would have really cemented you as one of the key players in the barbecue scene, at least.
Yeah, look, I think so. I think this is the amazing thing, and this is the great thing about butchery now. 30 years ago, butchers would never talk to each other, and they're all against each other. And now, like, I'm friends with the local butchers that are like in direct competition with me. We if one of us has got if there's a van breakdown or someone needs transport, you pick each other's meat up and you help each other out. And it's funny, like Butcher Wars every year for the last 3 years in Sydney, me and Craig Munro have gotten up on stage and we've had the Battle of the West each time. And me and Craig are great mates. He rang me yesterday. We were on the phone for 25 minutes. Yeah, it's funny, like it's amazing to see how our trade has changed, but we can all kind of rally around the barbecue community and use it to, I suppose, to grow our businesses and grow us.
Why do you think that change has occurred? Is it because of the supermarkets, and is it that kind of a enemy of my enemy is my friend type thing?
Look, it could be. I think there's been a lot of in the last 10 years. There's been a lot of butcher shops shut down. There's so a lot of small towns used to have 2 or 3 shops, and now there's some towns that you might go 2 or 3 towns without seeing a shop. And I think maybe also too there was a lot of old school ideas and egos that are probably just not in shops anymore, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's not at all, and a lot of the other thing, like I'd hate to imagine where I'd be if we hadn't adapted and moved with the barbecue trend. I actually don't know if my shop would still be here. I don't know if I'd still be in business.
That's interesting that you made that link there between adaptation and survival. So you mentioned at the top of the episode there COVID-19 and the fact that the shop's been sold out and in some ways busier than ever before. So you've obviously come up with some strategies and some techniques and different things to in response to that. So would you mind sharing some of those things that you've done?
Look, we've had to we're now constantly wearing gloves, which are being changed in between every customer. We're constantly cleaning like all the bench tops and countertops, the windows, the floor. We've had to set a stipulation. My shop is very small. It's only about 44 square meters. And when we're fully stacked, we can fit about 6 or 7 people in the shop, but we've had to restrict that to 3 people at a time. But we've had such a constant, steady stream of people with the staff that I have. There's normally 4 of us there. So only having 3 customers at a time, it's actually been good. There's always been someone cutting. We've actually been kind of keeping our display fuller than normal and keeping up with the turnover now that we can get stock again. That was an issue 3 weeks ago. That was a huge issue. We couldn't get a lot of stock. But yeah, and we've also gone, we've offering home deliveries, which are completely contactless. If you're in isolation, they can pay over the phone with a bank card and we'll take it and drop it at their front gate and mosey on off. And but also just delivering for a lot of people that don't want to be out and about. There's a lot of our clientele are elderly. So they're ringing us up and we're getting their meat together and then going and grabbing them a loaf of bread and a 2-litre milk and dropping it to them after work.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So yeah, we've just had to try and just move on with it and just adapt.
So it sounds like you've found a bit of a silver lining in the staffing to customer ratio, but you've managed to swing that to the shop's benefit. So rather than cut staff down, it sounds like you've found other ways to employ them, which have in turn added more to the business.
That's right, mate. None of my boys have lost any overtime since all of this has gone on. We were quite worried when it first hit. We'd left Penrith here at 3 a.m. on the Friday morning, and me and Adrian Lupino and James Taylor from Butterbeard Barbecue, we drove down to Melbourne for meat stock. We were all excited, getting ramped and ready for it. We pulled up and we unloaded, and we headed to the Q Club for a beer, and then they cancelled it. Look, we had an amazing weekend in Melbourne because we'd paid for our accommodation. We were there anyway. But yeah, and then on the drive back, I remember driving back from Melbourne, it being in touch with my boys in the shop because we came back on the Monday, and hearing how busy they were and not kind of really understanding how much meat they were selling. And I got back to the shop and we had nothing. I had to organise some pretty quick deliveries, and we couldn't keep up. We were busier turnover-wise than we were at Christmas. The only difference is at Christmas we've got 6 weeks to plan it and pre-order stuff. No one saw this coming. It was almost like World War III in the retail environment for that first week. Everyone just ducking for cover and trying to pick up what was around them and work out what was going on.
Yeah. So that stock issue that you mentioned before? Then I take that was a direct result of the panic buying. Is that right?
Yes. So the issue was all the big wholesalers in Sydney and in Melbourne and in Brisbane. All of a sudden they'd sold like 4 weeks worth of meat in 3 days. Wow. And they had no stock left. So they were waiting for the distributors to send them product from from the processing plants. So there was that period of time where we couldn't get anything. I ended up typing up quite a big in-depth post actually, because I'd seen in a lot of community groups, we didn't get mentioned, but I'd seen a lot of butchers getting burned. People took photos of their displays because the mince had gone up in price. And it said and people were making comments, we won't support them when this all goes back to normal. But it was a simple case of supply and demand. We ran out of the cheaper cuts to mince, and we had to mince more expensive cuts, so the price had to change. And it was hard. We didn't cop it, but I've got mates that copped abuse in their stores. All we're trying to do is keep our doors open and keep them being fed and keep up with the demand. But a lot of people took it as fear-mongering and profiteering, I suppose. But we're not eligible for any wage subsidies because my turnover hasn't dropped, although my margins have. So we're working harder currently for slightly less margins, but that's up to me to balance out. But it's not always great, but we're still making do.
Mate, I'm glad that you pointed that out, because it hadn't occurred to me that more expensive cuts would have to be used to meet the demand for the less expensive cuts, if that makes sense. Like what you said about using expensive cuts to make mince, because everybody wants mince because mince is typically cheap. That's a fascinating point and something that had never even occurred to me.
Yeah, it's and then the flow on will be interesting to see. I'd be interesting to see. It's funny. We're kind of waiting for the not so much the panic buying, but just the intense buying to stop. But it'll be interesting to see how the industry holds up in a few months' time when what's been produced and is due to be done for us ready for that period of time in 2 or 3 months' time, if it will be enough or if we'll get there because of what we've overused. So I don't know. It'll be interesting.
You're listening to the internationally awarded Smoking Hot Confessions podcast with massive barbecue nerd Ben Arnott.
Alrighty, so we've well and truly established by now that you do have a strong relationship in the competitive barbecue scene there. So
yes,
tell us how that came about.
The very first barbecue team that I ever really had anything to do with was the girls from Pitts Perfect, Linda and Sam.
I love those guys.
Mate, I have I've had many drunken shenanigan evenings at barbecue contests with them, and it's always good fun. They're always good value. They're way too loud. They never turn their music down, but I love them. So Linda came into the shop, and it was after I'd started the smokers group and not even really realised about the competitive side of the ABA. Or any form of competitive barbecue, to be honest. It was just more just trying to get briskets in and establishing contacts to get some short ribs and what's a tomahawk, where to get a tomahawk. Do you know what I mean? It was all new for me. And Linda kind of came in and was like, hey, we want to cook barbecue, and explained it all to me. And I was like, okay, cool. And I actually started, it's funny, the ribs that I cut, the pork ribs that I cut, pretty well known and pretty well in demand. I constantly have to knock people back because I can't produce enough. It's hard. Like the amount of wastage that's involved just to get one rack of comp ribs is astronomical. And I've got a terrible habit of not overcharging people for it. So it's not worth the time to do it. And if you were to charge them that, like what it is worth, I don't think people would want to buy them. But I developed this way of cutting what I call a hybrid rib, which is, it's kind of taking half of the St. Louis and half of the baby back, but splitting them sideways so the bones sit completely straight, or as straight as possible. But you eliminate having any of the loin meat left on the baby back aspect of the rib, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Purely because that belly meat always cooks better. That loin meat always tends to dry out. So we spent, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 comps trying to work out how to cut pork ribs. And, I probably gave them a whole heap of average ones in the beginning. But I think their very first comp, they won first place pork ribs at Bangalow, I'm pretty sure, with Bangalow ribs. It was, And that was kind of where it started from. And then, back when the Beard and the Barbecue was the Beard and the Barbecue, Adrian came and saw me. Me and Adrian developed a very close friendship early on. And then after Port Macquarie one year, I'd been up there with everybody just drinking and letting my hair down and carrying on. And me and Tony spoke, and we went, all right, let's do your meat. So then I started doing the meat for the Beard and the Barbecue. I'm still doing the meat for them now, known as Butterbeard. Tony obviously retired. And then it kind of rolled on from there. I do all of Rolling Smoke's meat except for his beef, because Lucas is very lucky to have an amazing deal with Jack's Creek. So I take care of all of his pork, lamb and chicken. And then it kind of grew. I've got the boys from BBQ. I've got Crank It Up Barbecue. I've got Wizards of Q. I've got the Smoke and Spice Beers on Ice guys out at Mudgee. Black Glove Barbecue. Do meat for the Sheen Shangri-La. And when Hoggy Style Barbecue was still competing, I do meat for them. We've had teams flow over from New Zealand that I've done meat for them for the Invitational. I've always got a message like a few days before a comp that I was going to, or that one of my teams was going to, and sent an emergency Boston butt or an extra couple of lamb racks for teams from New Zealand, from Queensland, Victoria and New South Wales. But 10 teams that's what we take care of, 10 barbecue teams.
Mate, out of a shop that was 44 square meters or something, you said, to your shop size to team sponsorship ratio is just off the charts.
Yeah, look, normally my cool room, we normally buy 2 pigs a week. Our shop doesn't turn over a lot of pork, but when it's comp week and I've got to get 3 to 4 racks of ribs for each of these lovely teams of mine, I go from getting 2 pigs to getting 2 pigs and an extra like 20 barrels. My pork consumption goes up like, I don't know. I'd hate to see it, but it's all worth it. It's all definitely worth it. I love it.
Yeah. Now you mentioned Roll and Smoke there, and Lucas is a longtime friend of Smoke and Hot Confessions as well, and he raves about the lamb that he gets from you. What lamb do you get in there?
Do you know what, mate? I'll let you in on a little secret. There's always a lot of talk about lamb, and a lot of people like they want Sovereign or they want Lamb of Tassie, because there is a couple of branded lamb producers that do boxed lamb. All my lamb is it's fresh lamb that's processed at the Ryan Abattoirs, which I think is in Victoria in the middle of nowhere. Could be wrong, could be New South Wales. I'd actually have to check. And it's just local pasture raised lamb that's sourced from multiple different farms. It's never from the same place. It's just always consistent.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. It's funny. Like I'm such a big brand advocate for Bangalow. I'm such a big brand advocate for companies like Ranges Valley and Jacks Creek, and there's so many of them. But lamb, I don't know. We've had a lot of success. The bit in the barbecue at Port Macquarie got the first perfect lamb score, 360 points, with just our not backyard lamb, but it kind of is. It's just like, it's not no name, it's not black and gold, but it's it's not branded. Do you know what I mean? And it's just consistent, and it's amazing lamb.
I have actually noticed that before, that there doesn't seem to be quite as strong branding when it comes to lamb as there is with, say, pork, or especially with beef.
No.
Is that just a matter of time, do you think, until lamb farmers sort of realise the power of branding?
That's an interesting one. I do believe, like certain breeds of lamb, I'm a big fan of Dorpers. I do believe certain breeds are definitely better, but it would be hard, I think, to see. I don't know. That would be interesting to see, Ben. I'm not sure. I think there's an avenue for someone to come in and kind of take the market in terms of a company such as Sun Pork, but like in a lamb world, I think there definitely is. But yeah, I'm not sure of any.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to find someone who's got some some really good lamb, and then put together a strong branding package and just sort of corner that lamb market.
Market that and push it out. Yeah, that would be.
Yeah,
that would be
fascinating stuff. Now, your connection to these competition teams, that has actually taken you to the competition that everyone wants to get to, hasn't it?
Yes, it has, mate. Yes, it definitely has. So 2018, the bid in the barbecue GC'd the Burleigh Barbecue Comp, which gained them an entry to last year's Royal we went to. It was probably the best 3 weeks of my life, mate. We flew over. I did my birthday in Vegas.
Oh, nice.
And then actually 3 out of the 4 of us had birthdays while we were there. But no, the Royal, mate, that was such an experience. We stayed probably about 10 minutes away. You could see the stadium from where our little motel was, and mate, just the people, the setups. American barbecue is definitely alive and well, mate. They are. You look at some of the huge setups that we have over here, which are incredible, and then you go over there, and it's just another world. Just another world. But the people were amazing, mate. They were so welcoming. They wanted to come and see. We flew Ranges Valley WX9 first cross briskets. We flew 4 briskets over for the comps. So and we had Americans that wanted to come up and look at our briskets. They heard that the Aussies had their briskets here. It was cool. It was different. And we had great neighbours. We had smoke-faced grillers on one side of us.
Oh, fantastic.
We had the Heat Beats All-Stars on the other side of us.
Beautiful.
I think Jared McDonald was with Smokeface. It was, mate, it was just, it was a cool 4 days, 3 or 4 days that we were there. And yeah, just the back-to-back comp scenario was interesting. It's something I'd really like to see in Australia. I think actually having like a double header over a weekend would be really cool. And I mean, it's funny, we had the time of our lives. The boys had some good results. 39th brisket in the Open, which I think there was 400 and something teams. And then, oh God, don't quote me on it. I think 22nd in pork.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, we mid-backed by the end result of it. But yeah, it was such an amazing experience. It was cool to see just like the results changed from us changing our flavour profiles from the first day to the second. Like on the invitational day, we just used all of our standard profiles that we use here. And they definitely, that's not what the judges want there. So that was a cool perspective to get. And then we mixed it up and changed it up a bit and had better results the next day. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if we could ever go again. I had planned to spend my 30th in Vegas this year and then tie that into the World Butchers Challenge at the in Sacramento at the end of August, birthday in September, and then do the Royal again. But
what
unfortunately, mate, I was I've been so excited, but we've had to cancel it. It's
I
good old
hear
COVID,
you, man.
but
I had to cancel my trip as well.
Yeah, isn't it? It's just such an odd time to be alive at the moment.
It is. But as we said, we are finding new evolutionary, or the workplaces are evolving. So
yes,
it's quite fascinating. Interesting times. So were you going to actually be competing in the World Butchers Championships there?
Oh, no, definitely not. I would, mate, that would be an honour. That's, don't get me wrong, like Butcher Wars at Meat Stock is cool and it's one thing, but the World Butchers Challenge is just, it's a whole nother level.
Got a project you'd like to work on with the SHC team? Shoot Ben an email on ben@smokinghotconfessions.com and let's have a conversation.
Alrighty, so let's get into the lesson for today, for the advice that you're going to share. Now, as a butcher yourself, you're going to round out this episode with some advice for approaching, building a relationship with, and negotiating sponsorship with a butcher. Now, for the listeners out there, this is the barbecue equivalent of that Mel Gibson film, What Women Want. We are going to... Do you like that?
Mate, I've been known as a sausage whisperer before, but I just,
So kick it off for us, man. How do we approach a butcher that we want to work with?
Look, the biggest advice I can give to anybody out there, whether you're considering competing or you've competed 10 times and you might be at a bit of a brick wall. Some butchers aren't into it and they don't want to do it. All the teams that I sponsor and take care of, apart from Linda coming in and just speaking to me about it, none of these teams have approached me directly. It's been me approaching them, and that's because they've established a relationship with me. They shop with me. I don't expect any of my teams to be able to buy all their meat off us. It's not feasible. Like we sell a lot of high-end product and there is cheaper options out there and everyone lives on a budget. But all I could suggest is don't walk into a butcher shop and hit him up for a cheap brisket, but then get upset because he said no. Buy 6 sausages, half a kilo of mince and 2 chicken breasts and go back in a fortnight and do it again and say good day and have a chat. Then talk to them. They might not even know about the smoking world. Speak to them, see if they can source you a brisket, explain to them that you want grain fed because you want it a bit bigger, or, work with them. A lot of butchers don't know about all these American style cuts. It's not something we're taught. So if you can establish that relationship with them, that's probably your best avenue. I don't make any real form of profit off my teams, but yeah, they're mates. It's more than that. It's not just a business decision for me, but you've got to understand that not every other butcher is doing it from that avenue. So if you can provide some form of value for them, whether it's offering to do a masterclass or turn up on a Saturday morning and show them how to cook chicken wings on a Weber, you provide some time, donate some time. You don't have to donate anything else, and then give them something to work with, and they'll be much more inclined to work back with you.
So the building a relationship phase then is sort of the repeat clientele first of all, and then start offering something before you start asking for something.
That's right. Or just discuss with them and say, hey, this is where I'd like to go down. This is the avenue I'd like to go down. Would you be interested if we could provide something that would be mutually beneficial? The issue that I have is most people, I just get a random poorly worded message from someone I've never met before saying, hey, we're doing competitive barbecue. Can you sponsor us? And that's an instant no for me because I don't know you. Do you know what I mean? It almost comes across not as rude, but they're wanting something for nothing and they're a stranger. So it instantly puts you offside. Yeah. Whereas if there's someone, if they're, you start recognizing, and butchers, we remember our regulars, we remember your faces, we know who you are, and it's something that we kind of thrive off, having that relationship as well. It's nice for us to break the mundaneness of, hi, how you going? Hi, how you going? To, Ben, g'day, mate, how you going? What are you cooking this weekend?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's where it is. I think that's that relationship.
Now, something I used to do was I would actually get something from them, cook it over the weekend, and then bring them a little of it in on Monday to try. Is that overstepping the bounds, or is
No, mate, I don't think so, not at all. And even just saying to them, hey, do you have a Facebook page? Would you mind if I shared some photos? Do you want me to send it to your page so you can share it? You can give them value in content on social media that costs you nothing more than obviously buying the food, but you've eaten that. So you pass on those photos, and that's going to give them some content to share and drum up extra business. And then when they see people coming in off the back of some posts, it all greases the wheel in motion. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, fantastic. And very nicely worded there as well. So without naming names then, tell me about the worst approach that you've had.
It was the one I just gave. It was a really horribly written one from somebody who'd never done a barbecue comp, and they were asking me for sponsorship.
First time team too.
It wasn't even a first time team. It was someone who hadn't created a team, and he was also asking me what kind of smoker I'd suggest him buy for his first smoker. So he didn't even have a smoker, and I just really politely was like, "Oh, look, mate, maybe we can talk in a few months' time once you've cooked some things and maybe gotten to a barbecue comp and seen that there's a lot of work involved. These comp guys take it seriously, and there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of money. Even with a lot of my teams, even with sponsorship, they're still spending $1,200 on a comp.
Oh, easily.
And that's the thing that a lot of people don't realise. And you're spending $1,200 on each comp if you're lucky with sponsorship. Have you spent $5,000 on Cambros, marquees, tables, storage units? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a big investment, and I don't think a lot of people really realise that.
No, and it adds up quick.
Oh, definitely. Poor old credit card cops it.
So bad. So then, what's the best approach that you've had then? Or the best pitch. The best pitch.
Probably Linda. I'll give her credit give her credit there. Probably Linda, just coming in and just being honest and saying, hey, this is something we'd really like to do. And they live about 15, 20 minutes from my shop. So I believe they'd already approached their local butchers, tried to do the right thing with their local people that just weren't interested. And then I believe Linda may have joined the smokers group and seen what we were starting to build. And it was just her honesty. She just came in and said, this is what we really want to do. We've already bought all this stuff. And I said to them, I'll do you meet at cost for social media exposure. And that's a pretty good deal. And that's what I do for most of my teams. But I really wouldn't suggest that people think that that's what they're going to get when they approach butchers, because it's doing meat at cost price isn't really cost. It still costs us with our time and effort. And it's like I said, it's something that I do because it's a friendship thing. But just be open and honest in your pitch and just explain to them what you want, and just say to them, they might, I'm not sure. You could even suggest saying, hey, what if we get all our meat off you for 2 or 3 comps and pay full price? And if we do any well and we can bring in some trophies and get some photos and, back to that content thing on social media, it's not going to pay their bills, but exposure helps.
Now, you talked about bringing in photos and trophies and things. I understand you've got quite the wall of trophies in your shop now.
We've had, I wouldn't say hundreds. We must have had probably 70 maybe 80 trophies worth through the teams. I'd actually have to do the numbers. It's something I want to do purely just to see where we're at. But no, it's only a small shelf. So as the teams bring them in, I've got to send them home with their old ones. It's a rotating system. I actually am planning on building a bit of a shelf and a bit of a display thing, but it'll still fill up too quick. That's the hard part. So
sounds like you need a pool room, mate.
Oh, that's right. I just need a bigger butcher shop. Room.
Yeah.
Just need a bigger butcher shop with a trophy room.
Well, it certainly sounds like you're well on your way.
Oh, look, we're it's funny, we're actually at a point where we've kind of maximised what we're doing where we are, and as I said earlier, we're looking at that next 5-year lease option, and we're kind of looking at our future and where we'll be in 5 years. And I don't know. I hope I'm still trading, but I don't think we'll be where we are. I think we'll end up relocating somewhere where we've got more space and size and the facility to do a lot more, not just our butchery stuff. I'd love to. We sell GMGs and Hark products. I just don't have display space for them. I'd love to have a display range of that and go nuts with the rubs and sauces more so than we already have. But also maybe not on the same scale as Black Bear, but look at putting in a small kitchen and just diversifying and just, giving options. That's kind of where I want to be.
Yeah, that sounds very nice. There's a butcher local to me up here there was a butcher local to me up here on the Gold Coast. And in his shop there, it was kind of a U-shaped shop in a mall. And one side of the U-shape was like a sausage bar type thing. And they would cook these gourmet sausages and then chop them up or put them in a bun, and you could have sauerkraut on it. So it was
wow. That's cool. It's a different option. It's not what every food court's got to offer. It's something different. So
exactly, cool. Yeah. And then on the other side of on the other side of the shop, they had a fully glassed in with conveyor belts run through the ceiling of I don't know the proper word for it, but like you hang a carcass on a hook and then it comes out on this conveyor belt.
On the rails.
And it was this guy would just grab his knife and he'd break down the animal in front of everybody in this big glass box right out the front of the shop. And it really put like spectacle and show into what they were doing.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. That's amazing.
It was really cool stuff. Really cool. Alrighty. So that's probably a good point now where we can start to wrap things up. Thank you so much for coming along. I'm going to open up the microphones to you now. Let's close it out. Give some thanks, give some shout outs to whoever you'd like to, and tell everybody where they can track you down on the socials.
No worries. Look, Ben, thank you first to you for having me, mate. It's been a pleasure. I've been listening to the podcast for a while, and it's been a pleasure. The first thanks has got to be to my crew, my staff, Maddie, Jacob, Josh, and Ashton. I couldn't get out to the events and do what I get to do and have the enjoyable fun time that I have without them being there. They're the real backbone of the shop. I just talk all day and fluff about. Without them there, I can't be me. So a big thank you to them. My smokers group, the people in East Blaxland Smokers, all the barbecue teams I sponsor. And then the main people I'd really like to give thanks to would be Wes from Bovine and Swine. He's one of the first people that really got me into barbecue. Adrian from Butterbeard. He was one of the very early friends. Dan Watt from Country Boys. Lucas and Shane from Roll and Smoke. And probably one of my most favourite humans in the barbecue world is Dion Allen from Smoking Hot and Saucy. They're probably 6 of the people I respect the most in the barbecue community. So, yeah.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. And so where can we track you down on the social media?
Socials. So East Blaxland Butchery on Facebook and also on Instagram. We've got our smokers group, East Blaxland Smokers on Facebook as well.
Fantastic,
so that's us.
Absolutely fantastic, man. I love it. So, alrighty, I'm just going to say one more time, thanks very much for coming on the show and best of luck for the rest of 2020 and beyond. And I really hope you do get to make that birthday trip through Las Vegas and the Butchery Championships and then the Royal. That would just be absolute dream trip.
Oh, mate, that would make my year. That would make it.
And there you have have it, family. That was Scott Evans from East Blaxland Butchery. So we chatted about the shop, the range of products. We chatted about his involvement in the competition barbecue scene. And as I did say, we've got the barbecue equivalent of What Women Want in that last little section there, giving some killer advice for working with butchers. So huge thanks and respect go out to Scott for taking the time to come and chat with us. And it is really interesting as barbecuers to actually speak to someone who's on the other side of the counter, quite literally on the other side of the meat counter, and get that perspective on it. I am booked down to go to Kangaroo Valley in September this year, fingers crossed, touch wood. And I'm really hoping I can duck through the shop on the way out there and pick up some things to cook up and eat while I'm down there at the festival. And I guess that's it for today's show then. So if you have enjoyed this episode, do me a favor and share it on the socials for me. And wherever you listen to this episode, there will be a share function in your app. So click or tap on that, follow the instructions, and let your friends know what you liked about the episode and while they'll like it too. So until next time, take care of each other and keep on queuing.
Thanks for listening to the Smoking Hot Confessions podcast. Head on over to smokinghotconfessions.com for recipes, tips, and Ben's own confessions.